Having a difficult conversation this morning here on Talk Radio, and I appreciate it's half term. If you just joined us, you might not want to have the radio on around your children at the moment because obviously it's a conversation regarding the latest conviction of a grooming gang. They are being described in the media as an Asian grooming gang, though I realise that's a little bit of a broad term. We don't know the precise location of this particular Asian gang, though in previous convictions it has been pretty much well known that a lot of these gangs, I'm loath to say all, and I'm loath to completely have a blanket to tar an entire community with the same brush, but in the past it has been Pakistani grooming gangs specifically that seem to have targeted vulnerable white girls, and in this particular latest conviction we've seen, I think, 7 men in total jailed for 55 years after one girl was forced to have sex, 300 times with various men by the age of 15. So I've been asking whether this is a crime that should be receiving a lifetime in prison, because if you look at the effects of some of these poor victims, they have PTSD, they have depression, they have bulimia. I've put a lot of these victims on television myself, actually, and they never quite get over it. They never get over it. It's a life sentence for the victim. So should it not be a life sentence for the perpetrator? But more pertinently, and I think this is a difficult question. I don't know many other media outlets that would perhaps ask it, but why isn't this considered a hate crime? I feel like the people from the communities involved in this are specifically choosing vulnerable white girls. And if it were the shoe on the other foot, and there was a gang of white men specifically choosing vulnerable black girls or vulnerable Pakistani girls or vulnerable, even from a religious point of view, Muslim girls, it would be surely seen as a hate crime, wouldn't it? So I wonder if that would be a mechanism by which you could increase the sentences. Someone really brave who's chosen to give us a call this morning on this subject. She's changed her name for reasons I'm sure you'll understand, is Katie, who has been a victim of one of these crimes. Morning to you, Katie.
Hello, Cristo.
Thanks for taking the time to give us a call this morning. Really brave of you to do so. Tell us your story. What happened to you?
I've had I got raped over quite a long period of time, from when I was little to into young adulthood.
So at what age did it start, my love?
About 10 years ago.
So may I ask what age you were then?
25.
Okay. So that was when it stopped, was it? Or was that when it started? Okay.
Yeah. And I've been attacked by a stranger, raped by a stranger as well. And I went through similar to the case you were sharing. When it used to buy me things, sorry, it's not easy.
That's all right, take your time. You've got all the time in the world.
Like, when it's someone you're like trying to get in words, it's like it becomes normal. You feel like it should be happening when you get hurt every day,
So how did it start? You mentioned that the
Sorry,
person
not
involved.
easy.
No, it's fine. Look, firstly, I just want to say that you're already proving that you are a strong person who's getting past this horrific thing that happened in your life by being brave enough to call a radio station and help other victims. So firstly, I completely applaud you for that, and I really feel quite honoured that you've chosen to do that. And I think it will really help people to hear how this happens, especially parents listening or those people who've been through this themselves. So you said something about them at first buying you things and making you feel special. So is that what happened
Like,
first?
If, sorry, it's not easy. After I got hurt, they used to shower me with gifts and that. It's also, to, don't tell anyone, get threatened all the time. But it becomes normal. You feel like it's your fault. It's normal to be hurt all the time,
Did you ever try and tell anyone, my love?
It took a long time. I had to physically move a long way, which was hard because that made me feel like I'd done wrong having to move. Do you know what I mean? That brought up a lot of issues.
I bet that maybe made you think that you were the one that had done something wrong. You're the one that has to suffer because of someone else's actions.
Yeah. I had to have a lot of trauma therapy. It took a lot, and I tried to kill myself quite a lot of times. But
to what kind of effect these girls who have been victims, they say things like it's given them PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress, that they have depression. I think one of them has recurring bulimia. I mean, I guess it might sound like a silly question, but does it ever leave you? Do you ever have moments where you're able to feel like you're, for want of a better word, normal?
Well, I don't feel normal anyway because I'm physically disabled.
Okay.
I'm wheelchair bound. So I have that to deal with as well.
And do you ever have moments where you are able to forget it? Or is it just something that's always in your mind?
It's always. And I ended up getting pregnant from one of the attacks, and that's hard because she ended up losing her. But it's really hard,
And that must be even another element that perhaps people don't even think about, having to go through that as well.
That was other violence, which I don't want. But, it just adds to it.
And so how do you feel when you hear about these stories? And I mean, I don't know, does it in some way, and forgive me, because I've never been through this, so I hope, forgive me for these questions, but do you, maybe when you hear that a conviction has taken place and that actually someone who's done this has gone to prison, does it make you feel any kind of relief that at least something's being done, or does it just bring back all the bad memories?
I don't think sentences are long enough for rape victims.
Right.
I think, like you said earlier, it should be life, because us people that have gone through it, it never goes away. It stays with you. It affects your confidence and makes you find it hard to socialise, and you just feel so dirty all the time. And it's like a life sentence, what we're doing.
Well, all I can say, Katie, is that we're all blown away by your bravery calling us to talk to us about this, and that it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. And I know it's easy to say those things, and it's really easy to give you those words, but it really and truly it isn't. And look, you're still here. You've survived. You're able to talk about it. You're helping other people.
And if anybody's listening who's going through it, if you look in your phone book for Rape Crisis, they're a brilliant organisation.
Yeah. Well, we're going to give the number of Rape Crisis in just a moment, Katie.
Sorry, I was just helping you.
No, I think to hear that from you and to hear that you've been helped by that, I think is really, really important. And just once again, I just want to reiterate, you're not to blame. You might feel like you are. You might feel like you're always going to feel like you are, but you're not. You're not. and you've won because you've survived. You've come through the other side. You're able to talk about it and help other people. You're able to ring a radio station and help other people, and hopefully, I just desperately hope that at some point you're in a position, Katie, and I know it's easier said than done, that you can have some sort, if any, of closure. And I send you my love, and I really appreciate you taking the time to call us this morning and to give us the privilege of hearing your story. Thank you, Katie. That's Katie in London giving us some insight as to what can happen if you are a victim of one of these horrific crimes. Rape Crisis, as Katie mentioned, is a number on 0808 802 9999. I'll say that again, 0808 802 9999. And they're there between 12 and 2:30 and 7 and 9:30 every day. Rape Crisis. If you're going through something similar to Katie, that's the number to call. Morning to you, Dean.
Good morning, Cristo. Lovely show, mate.
Appreciate it.
Can I just say that, it's got to be 50 years ago when I was raped.
Oh, Dean.
And I was at a party. I was just starting university.
How old were you?
I was 19.
Right.
And I was invited to a party, which, in university you go to lots of parties.
Of course.
Never thought anything of it. There was a lot of guys there. Never thought anything of that. And then the tables turned, and I was raped by 10 people. And because of the way I dressed, I was up for it.
I don't understand. Why did they think
because
that?
They thought I was a gay, or queer as it was then.
Right.
And I was up for it, I reported it to the police, and I was more or less just brushed to one side, but I insisted, and I carried on. And they arrested the guys, because I named them all.
Right.
I knew most of them. And it went to court, and I was told if I didn't dress provocatively, sorry, can't say the word, I wouldn't have drawn the attention to myself.
I don't understand what counts as dressing. Firstly, not that matters.
I wore tight T-shirts, and I was a young guy, I was, in them days, I was quite good looking, that sort of stuff, I wore tight jeans and, nothing that you wouldn't normally wear, as I thought,
Oh, Dean, this is absolutely
and
heartbreaking.
The judge's summing up was that they were found not guilty because I enticed them, basically, more or less was said, which was soul-destroying, for me anyway. But I came out of that courtroom and I said, right, I fight for number one from now on. And I put it to the back of my mind, and I finished my university. I got a first honours degree in medicine. I practiced medicine for 42 years, and it's never held me back once until today, when you brought the show up. I got angry because in those days the police, yes, they were fully manned. In the 90s, they were fully manned. There was no cutbacks of police or anything like that. So it was still happening then in the 90s.
How do you feel
and no
when you
of this land have ever took the what do you call it, the care of their citizens seriously,
How do you feel when you heard that there were still these crimes back in the 90s being covered up?
It's soul destroying, actually. If you hear it often, and you think, oh my God, not again. Some poor soul,
Does it ever leave you, Dean? You said you put it in the back of your mind, but does it?
Yeah, it didn't bring me to where I was before, if you understand what I mean.
But have you ever had a day where you can say you haven't thought about it?
Yeah, I can actually, because I locked it away in my mind, right in the back of my mind. Certain occasions bring it out, but I still don't get down and depressed or anything like that, because it happened, and I have to get on with my life. I'm not going to be a prisoner to that.
But
That was my... At 19, I wasn't going to be a prisoner to it.
That is so...
And it was very hard to begin with, but as time went on, it just got easier to live with. And I got married, just to tell you briefly, and I had 3 lovely children. And my wife actually walked out on me one day. I didn't even know. But I then realised that was a good thing, because I probably was a gay, or I thought I was gay, and it turns out that I was, I met this lovely guy who I've been with for 21 years now, and we brought up my 3 children, and it's been a happy life.
Do you think what happened to you made you actually want to suppress the fact that you were gay? Because obviously if you had maybe admitted to it before, it would have brought back what happened to you.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. I think I was leaning on that side anyway, because to be honest with you, I mean, I did fancy men more than women, but I never done anything about it.
But also that absolute outright horrific homophobia and prejudice and awful way in which the judge described and handled what happened to you.
Don't forget,
Like, and Dean, I mean, I'm loath to say this because I don't want to, forgive me for saying it, but to me, what you have come through and where you are now, as horrific as it was, it sounds to me like almost like a I don't want to say success story, but you beat them. Do you know what I mean? You did. You beat them.
Absolutely. That's how I look at it. I beat them, because I look back on them now. They never had the qualifications that I did. So they done me a favour in lots of ways. I was so determined to make something of myself that I could turn around and help other people, which I did. I run a clinic for young gay men for nearly 30 years, where they could drop in and discuss things, and I had counsellors there as well that all offered their help.
If any of those,
we hopefully saved a few people from what happened to me.
If any of those 10 guys were listening now, what would you want them to hear from you?
I would say, well done, guys. You've done me a favour.
Wow. I mean, I cannot.
I've got no hatred to them.
I cannot,
because that eats away in you otherwise.
I cannot imagine getting to a point where you can actually, where you've achieved so much and you are in a place of such forgiveness that you're able to actually thank the people that did that to you. That's blown me away.
I could have hatred in my body, but I don't believe in that. I never have believed in hatred towards anybody, any human being. And I'm not particularly carry any faith, My faith is in myself.
But I was about to say that, and my God, is it well placed, because you won. And I mean, talk about triumph over adversity. You completely showed that what is an absolutely horrific event, which affects different people differently. If you're still functioning on a day-to-day basis and able to hold down a job and, eat 3 meals a day, go to work and come home and go to sleep at night, and you've been through that, I would consider that an achievement for what you've been through. To actually turn that into a positive and use that as an impetus to motivate the rest of your life has absolutely blown me away. Dean, thank you so much for your call. I really appreciate it. That's Dean in Oxford. We've kind of cleared the decks this morning. We started off by planning just in the last hour of talking about the horrific effects and really quite ridiculous sentencing given to some of these Asian grooming gangs, some of them, as we know, of Pakistani heritage as well. And we were discussing that in the last hour and talking about how the sentences really don't do justice to the life sentences that some of the victims find themselves going through. And that's prompted some of you to call with not only your opinions on whether the sentences are appropriate, whether you agree with me that they should actually be seen as hate crimes as well, because they are specifically focusing on a particular community. But of course, some of your stories as well of trying to just get over, if you ever can, being a victim of this kind of crime yourself. And I've been quite blown away by some of the calls that you've been giving me this morning, and I thank you for that. Just a little caveat to say, obviously, it's half term. We realise that for some of you, this conversation might be difficult. For some of you who might have children or vulnerable people in the room as well, might be a time to have them leave the room or turn the radio off, because obviously some of these calls are quite traumatic. But we're privileged that you've chosen to call and tell us. And Imran from Manchester has done the very same thing. Morning to you, Imran.
Good morning, Chris.
What was it that prompted you to want to pick up the phone this morning?
I've been, after hearing on the radio, and you've mentioned hate crime. Absolutely, 100%. Of course, it is a hate crime. Having been through this at the age of 10, I'm 45 years old right now. Last year, I went through counseling. And I feel for these young girls, because there's only so much counseling can help you with, because it's with you for the rest of your life.
So you were, I'm sorry to ask.
I was abused when I was 10 years old, 10, 11.
Without giving names, who by?
I can't even tell you who it was, because I can't remember.
Okay.
Yes, again, I was showered with gifts. And back in those days, there was, a 50p, 20 pence here or there. I didn't know what I was going through until I was a teenager. Then I realized, before the internet, before everything came along, then I realized that, you know what, this is what happened to me.
So for how long did it go on for? It started at age 10?
No, that's fine. It went on for roughly a year.
Right.
A year. Actually, it was a summer. I'm gonna give you the facts that it was a summer. It wasn't in my location. It was outside of my location. It was in another county, in fact. I used to go and visit family, friends, and through that, I got introduced to a family friend.
Right.
And again, he wasn't of my ethnicity, and I'm Indian by origin. He wasn't of my ethnicity. He was white, of course. Yes, back then, again, I can wholeheartedly say that yes, it was a hate crime. However, the reason why I'm calling is because these people should deserve the full extent of. Sorry, my words are not coming out.
That's okay.
Harsher sentences, and even chemical castration. I'm for it. Just because we don't hear it in the media doesn't mean it doesn't happen in my own community.
I was just going to say, because we don't really hear about Muslim or Asian victims of this kind of crime.
Well,
why do you say?
I'm going to tell you a few facts here.
Okay.
If it was to happen in our communities, we wouldn't call the police. We wouldn't call the police. The only reason why we wouldn't call the police is because the law is so relaxed.
But do you not feel you'd be taken seriously?
I mean, we would be taken seriously. We'd be taken seriously. However, the law doesn't, do justice enough for the victims.
Okay.
It doesn't do justice for the victims, and that's why I'm talking to you for the first. I'm talking to in fact, this is the first time I'm speaking, and I know for a fact that my family are going to listen in on this conversation and hear my voice, Obviously, I'm going to get a few calls.
Have you never spoken to your family about this, Imran?
Absolutely not. No, can't do it. I can't do it. I just do it.
But
What good is it going to come to me or my family?
why do you think what happened to you was a hate crime? You said specifically that you think it was a hate crime.
Well, he was white. I was Asian. But again, I don't know. Maybe I've chosen the wrong words for my incident. It was just a crime against an innocent boy,
And
like it is to the young girls.
for how long? You mentioned that you sort of locked it away, and then what was it that prompted you? Did you say last year to start trying
Last
to
year,
unpick it?
well, I've got 2 young daughters,
Okay.
and I protect them as much as possible. And last year is when it triggered me.
What triggered you?
With the stories, I hear stories, on the news, and I think to myself, from the parent's perspective, I wouldn't wish this on my children. I wouldn't wish this on anyone's children. What are the parents going through of these disgusting crimes? And yes, I did at that time seek counselling.
How was it manifesting itself when you started to realise that it was
eating me up alive. It was eating me up alive. I wanted to speak. I needed to speak to somebody, but I could not find the right person. Even now, I feel that talking to a counsellor hadn't done the job that it needed to do.
What prompted you to want to ring us today?
To agree, firstly, to agree with you in regards to it being a hate crime. Yes, not all Pakistani men are groomers. Not all Muslim people are. We can't tarnish people with the same brush. But yes, in this occasion, of course, it's a hate crime. Had they have targeted a group of Asian girls, you wouldn't hear about it. They would have dealt with it if they got caught.
Why have you never told any of your family about it?
I've never told them because, do you know what? I really don't know why I've never told them. I really don't know.
Because it
Because
wasn't.
it makes me feel that they'll feel helpless.
You know that it wasn't your fault, Imran, don't you?
Yes. Yes, I do.
And
I try to think. There's times, Chris, that I think that had I not gone to such a place, if I'd taken a left instead of a right, then I wouldn't have gone through what I went through. Same again with these young girls. Had they not known certain individuals, had they not gone left, then this wouldn't have happened.
But that is perhaps covertly, but that is you blaming yourself a little bit. That is you probably, understandably, I mean, goodness, of course, understandably looking back and questioning your decisions and questioning, like you said, why didn't I do this and why didn't you do that? But Imran, you were 10. You were 10. You can't make decisions as a 10-year-old based on the possibility of being abused, my friend. You can't.
Yeah. No, I understand, but it's very difficult to sort of not blame myself. If anyone has been, I mean, I was a young boy, but it's difficult to sort of even not think that way. I'm sure that people in my situation may think the same thing as well. Had I not done this, had I not made this choice, if I wasn't, in contact with X, Y, and Z, then maybe this wouldn't have happened.
What would you say to them? What would be your advice to them?
You can't give them any advice besides, saying, okay, it wasn't your fault, and like you are doing, Chris, right now. You can't. There's nothing that we can say to them. It's happened.
But you did.
Unfortunately, they have to go through this for the rest of their life. They have to live with it for the rest of their life.
You do have to live with it for the rest of your life, but you don't have to live with, if you don't mind me saying, and I say this respectfully, but you don't need to live with questioning your own actions for the rest of your life. You just said the magic words about what you would say to someone else, and that is, it's not your fault. And you need to say that to yourself with love. And what I think it sounds like, and I'm not a therapist, I'm just a friend, man.
No,
but what
I understand. Yeah.
What it sounds like, you need to say to yourself, it sounds like you need to forgive yourself, Imran. Forget about forgiving whoever did this, because they are beyond forgiveness, actually, perhaps. But
Absolutely.
actually forgive you.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Because you didn't do anything wrong, Imran.
We're doing our best.
In
this situation, we're doing our best. There'll be some people who can, just ignore and suppress, and we're doing our best to sort of forgive ourselves.
Do you think you could say now, it wasn't my fault, I forgive myself?
It's tough.
Because do you know what? I'm not going to make you say it if you don't want to, but
no, I know.
I so want you to say it for you, not for me, for you.
I know. Yeah, I know. To a degree, yes, of course, it wasn't my fault. To a degree that, I didn't ask for. It was just some, these vultures, they need to be punished.
It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault, my friend. I promise
Thank
you.
you. No, I understand.
Will you do something else for me, Imran?
Absolutely.
Will you now talk to a family member about it? I mean, you said they probably heard now anyway, so you might not have a choice. But will you promise me you'll come off this call and talk to someone?
Well, I'm at work, so I can't talk to anybody.
Okay, well, maybe not right this second.
I just managed to get... No. I remarried. Remarried, and I have got a wonderful wife who, would listen. She doesn't know.
Tell her, Imran. Please tell her.
She will. She will today.
Will you tell her today?
Of course, yeah, 100%. I've been meaning to tell my partner, my wife, for a long time, but I've never had the courage to speak to her. I couldn't talk to my mother. I couldn't talk to my brothers because I know for a fact that they'll feel helpless. Where were we in these times when you needed us?
But there's also the helpless 10-year-old Imran that you've got to help at the moment, my friend. And I think you would really help him, that 10-year-old Imran that's still inside you, if you were to at least tell your wife about it and have her salute the courage that you've given to us. And you clearly have the courage because you've rung and just helped thousands of people listening this morning who can know that they can get through it. And you've displayed such immense courage by calling us and such immense kindness by actually helping other people, that what I'd really love you to do, Imran, is give yourself a little bit of that kindness now and go and talk to your wife about it and promise me that you'll try. And I know it's so easier said than done to just keep telling yourself that it doesn't matter whether you turned left or right that day. It doesn't matter what you did at the age of 10. It was not your fault.
This is the thing, Chris. You've said something to me which not once did my counselor at the time had asked me to do.
What's that?
Talk to somebody.
Well, do it.
Not once did my counselor mention these things.
And you know what you have, because you've talked to me about it. You have. I mean, you've taken the first step. You've done it. You've talked to me about it. You've not talked to anyone else about it, right? Other than your counsellor, you've not told anyone else. But you've taken the first step. So now that is really the hardest one. You've done absolutely 100% the hardest one you've done now. So now, the next one, when you tell your wife, will be just a tiny bit easier, right?
Yes, 100% I will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Imran, and I wish you love and the best of luck. All right, my friend.
Thank you.
That's Imran with another really amazing story.